From the back roads and courthouse steps of small-town South Carolina to the late-night studio where the mics never sleep, this is where decisions, rumors, and real stories collide. You're tuned in to the Pot Stirrer Podcast with Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, local issues, no fluff.
Well, welcome in and good evening, everybody. It is a Tuesday edition here of the Pot Stirrer Podcast. I'm Jazzy Jeff. Welcome you and everybody in. I hope that you have had a wonderful start to the week here so far. And of course, tonight we've got tons of great things to talk about. And one that we were not expecting to have to talk about, and of course, by now, most of you do know the passing Saturday night of our state senator, our United States Senator, that's Lindsey Graham, and wanted to get a little bit of perspective on what we can expect coming up. And I've got Barry Sanders going to be joining us right now via the phone lines. And Barry, I want to welcome you to the program this evening. And unfortunately, I hate the news that we're having to talk about tonight, but it is something that I guess we really do need to talk about. Barry, how are you, sir?
Brother, I'm doing better than I deserve. How are you this fine evening?
I am living the, how do you call it in Oconee? We're living the dream, is what they say around these parts.
Well, yeah, my day on Sunday morning started at 4:30 with my phone ringing off the hook. So it was a bit of a nightmare. I did get some sleep recently. So, Jeff, we've got a lot of ground to cover, and this one's going to be a wild one. So buckle up.
So I have to set the scene here. Most folks know by now that our senator passed away in an unfortunate accident that is a rarity that does happen, unfortunately. But, you know, we've talked about all of it. Yesterday, it was announced that his sister will be fulfilling the end of his term until January. But where do we go from here?
Okay, Jeff, that's a great question. We're gonna have to take this wide, and we're gonna have to take it deep because this has ramifications. And I don't want to get too far out, but I'm going to try to explain this in a very simple term so that the viewers and listeners can understand, because this has so many ramifications that are going to touch at so many levels. It's going to be a very interesting ride. So, as you know, the governor McMaster's appointed Mrs. Graham as his sister as the senator. Now, but here's the thing. Yes, it's a senator voting, and yes, she is Republican. But Jeff, she's not going to be the chair of the Appropriations Committee. She's not going to be the chair of the Judicial Committee. She's not going to be the chair of the Budget Committee. The thing is, you had a senator for 24 years who had worked his way up and got seniority. You have 3 Senate committees that now have different members and the mix. They go from having a South Carolina senator as the person in charge to a person who just basically votes in the city on the subcommittees. Jeff, that is a big blow right there. That's number one. So the establishment component that Graham was in place for many years and had seniority, that's number one. So, for instance, base closures, right? Mm-hmm. So there were 3 closures on the slate. There was one in Sumter County here in South Carolina. There was one in Arizona, and I believe there was one in California. All 3 were in discussions and things like that. You also had one at Warner Robins in Georgia that I think is now off the list. But the one at South Carolina, because Lindsey Graham was on the committee, and the chairman of the committee of the appropriations, it most likely was just saved. Now it becomes an issue. Will this base be closed? We don't know. So that's one of the ramifications. The composure and the mix on these committees changes, and that is a big fundamental component that Washington. Now, we haven't even talked about South Carolina.
Right.
We're just talking about what's going to happen in Washington. You're going to have so much posturing. It is going to be a wild month until all of this kind of sorts out and everyone kind of gets into, the roles and things that need to be handled. But this is going to be a wild ride. Now, don't forget, the budget for the federal budget hasn't been finalized. And guess who was head of the chair of the budget committee?
Yes.
So you see the ramifications and the domino effect just in breath. Now, let's go deep for a second. Okay, because everybody wants to talk about who's in and who's out, but we're going to stop there because I want to just say this. After, the runoffs, and you and I had a great podcast that evening. That was a great telecast. You did a great job on that, by the way. We had those live events coming in. We were talking about the surprises, stuff like that. What I should have been focusing on is finding, somebody who wanted to run for the school board here locally in District 3. We wanted to do some work there, and that's what I was focusing on and some other things. And, that was the key elements. By the way, if any of your listeners are interested in running for the school board, and wants to file soon, let me know. We will help you out as much as we can. Just get in touch with Jeff Bright, and he'll contact me, and we'll get some. But we're looking for good folks to run for school board because we need folks who are more active in the political process. And this is a great way to get to know your community and step your foot into politics. But that was my focus until Sunday night. The world changed. Okay. And so now what happened is you have a domino effect. So first, you have the folks on the Republican side, because now there's got to be on the filing system, or the filing system opens July 21st and is open till the July 28th. So there's 7 days where people can file. Then your election is going to be on the 11th. You will most likely, because of the number of candidates who are likely to enter, you will have 2 weeks, and then you'll have a runoff, just like we did back in June. So our campaign season, Jeff, has just continued on and on and on. We had like a week break, and now we're back at it. So here's what we know so far. There is, in the 7th district, Russell Fry is more than likely going to be in. And by the way, you've heard rumors and things on social media about Trump, pushing him toward the endorsement.
I think I heard a little bit about that this afternoon, as some of the news outlets were picking up on that.
Right. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, Mark Lynch has pledged $5 million more of his own dollars to go back into the race. Now that's very important because those are federal funds, and he can run on that, and he can self-fund his all day long. Mm-hmm. We know that Ron Reddy is not going to run, so we can close him out. There was some rumor and innuendo on on Sunday night going into Monday morning. There were some talks, things like this, so we can count him out. Patrick Herman was a candidate. He's no longer in. We're hearing that Thomas I can't pronounce this. Disnukes. Yeah. I've heard that he's not interested in running again. So we're gonna take these and set these aside. Now, you also hear Nancy Mace. This is a wild card because every couple hours the story changes. Right. And it depends on what you're getting. So Jeff, I would say that she's most likely leaning, but somebody may be able to talk her out of it. I don't know where she stands with this. So right now we're seeing Pam Evatt most likely will put her name in. Okay. Maybe not. We hear Russell Fry out of the 7th. Yes. Ralph Norman out of the 5th. Yes. Nancy Mace out of the 1st. Yes. So, and Mark Lynch, businessman. Right. Now here's what you're facing. If you look at the conservatism scale, and a lot of people want to look at this, because we have some people that lost elections, and that's got to be accounted for, because you've got 3 people who recently lost are throwing their hat in because they get a second chance. Mm-hmm. But we're going to talk about that in just a second. But I want to focus on the conservative scale because, Senator Graham had a 52 score. Tim Scott has a 67. Then you go up to Nancy Mace at 75. Then you go up to Russell Fry at 85, and then Ralph Norman 87. So these are very conservative. No matter what you've got, this is not progressive versus liberal versus conservative. These are very conservative numbers. Mm-hmm. So no matter what happens, you're basically going from 52 into the 80s, and you're conservative. So this is going to be a very conservative senator seat change. That's one. So people can be rest assured conservative values are going to be promoted. Then you get into personalities, and this is where it gets nutty. So on Take Back Our SEGOP, the Facebook page that we've got, we put out a poll last night and we said, hey, here's who we're hearing is out there running right now. Who would you vote for? 800 people corresponded so far. It's basically Mark Lynch, and this is what shocked all of the folks that are kind of inside baseball, inside the GOP right now.
Mm-hmm. Folks
in the trenches, folks in the grassroots are basically saying 33% Mark Lynch, 20% Nancy Mace, 21% Ralph Norman, and 26% Russell Fry. And this is basically upstate from Columbia on up. But I'm telling you, Jeff, that shocked me, that 33% for Mark Lynch. That one got me. So there's still an outcry. And that's what I'm saying. What caught us in the primary was the negative ads push Mark Lynch's numbers down. Could we see a repeat of that? And that's what we were thinking. We were thinking, Mark Lynch got pushed down, these lunatic $60 million ads to push him down. Then all of a sudden he's bounced back up and we're like, okay, there's something there that the grassroots wants to say. Don't know what the narrative is. So I'm going to leave that up to you to kind of tell me what you think that narrative is, because I was at a loss, brother.
I still think if you X's and O's, and when you take a look at the bigger picture, I still think, though, that people are going to remember all of the negative campaigns. And I think the big thing on the mind is the issue about cocaine in that video. I still think that that's resonating with a lot of people. But I still think, though, if we have some of the candidates that you're missing, I'm paying more attention to this Russell Fry right now. I have, and I've done a little bit of research this afternoon, but I can't see Nancy Mace running for Senate. And I'll tell you why. Because she was lambasted as running for governor. She was one of the dead last, and I just can't see her putting herself out there again. But I can see that the Ralph Norman, I can see the Russell Fry, and in the perfect world, this thing would only have a minimum of a few candidates, and then we would not need to have a runoff. I don't know. I don't see Mark Lynch being the big leader. I don't. I still see that Ralph Norman being the bigger leader, but Russell Fry definitely has my attention right now.
So to that point, so when we put the poll up there, right, and see the comments, things like this, there is this ardent, adamant support for Mark Lynch. Now, curiously enough, this is what got me. Mm-hmm. If you look at the numbers that he got in the primary and look at what he's got in the poll, it's still about 33%. All right. He's still in that range. I think that's his base talking, and they're with him, ride or die. Mm-hmm. I think that's what you're seeing. I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to have two people come out of this, because I think the camps are so divided right now, Jeff, that Norman people won't be Fry people won't be Lynch people. The question is, will Lynch people be Norman people? Because there were two different races last time. Could you see cross-pollination there? I don't know. I think that also the lunatic, the cocaine trafficking ads, may come into play as we get closer to the elections. Who knows? But also, there's one important element that we need to put for Mark Lynch. He had a campaign manager named Evan Maltz last time that became a centerpiece of some issues.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't think Mark is going to bring him. So the question is, how much memory are voters going to have when they go to the polls this time? So this is going to be interesting because, we're not used to having political ads in July. You are about to be inundated with, it is going to be nonstop political ads, for weeks here in just a couple of weeks. And Jeff, it is going to be, there's a couple of other names I'm hearing. One is Bill Timmons out of the 4th district. And I think that one may just be, wishful thinking. Have you heard that one?
I've not heard that one. Russell Fry is the only one that I've heard this afternoon. That was the one that has definitely piqued my curiosity.
Well, what's interesting is if we talk about Russell Fry, for instance, he's in the 7th down in Horry County. You talk to a lot of people in Horry County. They're not big friends. They're not big fans of his because he seems very malleable. But he's a first or second term, representative. Trump likes him. And so that's another thing. He seems to have the DJT endorsement. Jeff, curiously enough, if he backs out of the 7th race, there's 2 people. I think Vincent's one of them there that's willing to step up. That's causing a state house and senators to run against him in North County. Not only does it change the complexion in the Senate, it changes it in the House, and it's going to change it in the state house. So this is one of those trickle down things that has these huge ramifications.
It's just like with Lindsey passing. I'm not even sure that we were, and you never can, when anybody passes away, you can't be prepped for anything, but this kind of has affected not only from your national, but it trickles down to the local side too. And it's put a question mark on a lot of different things from between now and November. Things are going to look a lot different in South Carolina after this November election. You know that, and I know that. Things are not going to be the same. We've got a whole new leadership change forthcoming.
Well, there's one thing that a lot of people are concerned with, and that's prestige, the first in the South. And, Lindsey did bring a lot of prestige and a lot of things. I'm not talking post-COVID Lindsey. I'm talking pre-COVID Lindsey when he was a fireball and, he was thinking about running for president in 2016.
Right.
He was a force on the national level. As things progressed, things like this, his role kind of, he settled into a more of a patron role. But one of the things that we need to be the leadership team that's going into Washington for the Senate and for the House, they need to take a step up. But there's going to be someone new in the 1st district down in Charleston. There's going to be Wes Clymer is probably going to get the nomination and the victory over in the 5th district. And now the 7th district. So you have a brand new senator and 3 of your 7 representatives are brand new. Basically, South Carolina is starting over from scratch. And that's the way. Sherry Biggs is only in her 1st term.
Right.
So she'll be in her 2nd term. Your leadership is Jim Clyburn. That's your senior representative in the South Carolina congressional delegation.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. So do you think redistricting is going to be a huge issue next time?
No, not at all.
You see how things change, because a month ago we were talking redistricting. Now we're not. I mean, this is one death changed all of this, and you still are going to have things that come through even into the county levels. You're going to have people that are going to be running, and there's going to be special elections in the county levels. Jeff, it is going to be, this is probably going to be the most interesting year in South Carolina politics in a very long time.
I thought 2012 was when everybody was thrown off the ballot, but I assure you that this looks even worse in 2012. Just the potential, the ramifications that could be forthcoming. Let me ask you this question. There is another name that did pop up on a real short list, and have in mind, you take this for what it's worth, but former Governor Mark Sanford.
Okay. Sanford.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Okay. So here's the thing about Sanford. Okay. If you love him, you love him. If you don't know him, one of the things I need to put out here is this. You have a transient population that is moving into South Carolina. And a lot of people are post Sanford. They know Graham, they don't know Sanford.
Right.
And then the first thing out of their mouth, he was the guy, Argentine, second family, whole 9 yards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that dismisses him all. That's one of those quick things that say, oh yeah, I remember that. I was in Oregon or Utah where people moved from, or Ohio, of course. But that's what happens, is that's the first thing happens. The long-term South Carolinians, they like this. Nikki Haley was mentioned yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, of course, Trey Gowdy. Those names, those are I wish would run, but they're not going to. Nikki Haley in the 2024 primary, if you remember, she did not score well, and she was not well received by South Carolinians. They didn't like that. That's going to be an issue. Mark Sanford has money. He has money. but he also bowed out of the governor's race pretty quick when he saw the writing on the wall. So keep that in mind as well. So that's a different one there. There have been other names floated out there, and political. Right now, if people are going to raise money, they're serious, and Sanford is not raising money from what I hear.
Right.
So that's a key thing. I would think Evatt will be the next one to announce either in or out. And that one's almost 50-50 right now. She was, believe it or not, she was an early leader on the betting lines, but there was some guffaws over the past 48 hours that have let her out. And you know what the interesting thing about Ralph Norman is?
What's that?
People equate his age with the illnesses associated with Graham, and what they're saying is that, do we really want to go through this again? So, and I know Ralph, and I think he's got the energy of a 20-year-old sometimes, but I'm like, wow, but that's in the mind of voters. You know what I'm saying? So it's what weird. So right now, early on, if the field holds kind of the way it is, I could see a runoff right now between Fry and Lynch. And you heard that first.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's where it may come down to it. The only thing that would tip that, if someone else threw their name in there and decided to run that we didn't mention here, but right now that's what it looks like. I do. I think it's going to come down to Lynch and Fry, and then we'll go into a runoff, and then your guess is as good as mine who's going to win the runoff.
Right, and I think what I'm sensing right now is, I think two things are going on that I think we need to talk about, and that is, number one, Lynch does have the biggest war chest right now as it stands right now going into, and there's not a lot of time to fundraise. You don't have a lot of time to get your ground up. I mean, it's basically what you see is what you get. And he's got the signs out, everything. He's got the name. He's got the war chest where he can run ads. He can distance himself from mulch in that issue. So give him points on that one. Then it comes back to, okay, retool up the anti-Mark Lynch ads. You're going to see those again. So that's what I think. Nancy Mace may throw this out, because could Nancy Mace voters actually cross over to Ralph Norman? I don't know. I don't think Nancy Mace voters, by the way, right now, Nancy Mace voters would transfer over to Mark Lynch. Do you? I mean, that seems like a stretch.
It does, and I agree with you there. But, again, the timing of all of this is going to be the most critical, is that actually who has the war chest, who is prepared, and who is ready to go. Because, again, we're talking about filing is going to open next week. It's going to open next noon Tuesday, and it's going to run for 7 days. It'll close Tuesday, the 28th. And then the early voting is going to start the August the 5th through the 7th. And then the special primary is going to be on Tuesday, August the 11th. I mean, we're talking about putting this campaign together in less than this is not the typical time that you would have in order to put a campaign together.
So if you were Norman and you were campaigning statewide, you've got your name out there. That's great. Okay. But you don't have a federal plank. You've been there, right? And you've got this conservative thing, but you've been focusing on state here, state issues, state everything here. Lynch has got it because he's got that platform. Lynch has got the money. Lynch has got the radio spots already done.
Yep.
I mean, all he has to do is just buy time. That's simplicity. And he's got the connections where he could just go out and start running again the way he did. However, will the memory of the South Carolina voters remember on August 11th, the lunatic, and say, when they get into the ballot box, is that what they're going to remember, or they're going to remember all these other things? I don't know. And I'm watching, he's gaining traction as we go, and Fry is decreasing right now. So you had this unknown like Fry, and you were interested in him, and you start looking at it, you're like, well, yay or nay, I mean, that's the yay or nay factor with an unknown, right? They look great until they're called Scud missiles for a reason. They look great far off, but they stink as you get closer. do you have a scud or do you have a winner? That's kind of the $1 million question with Fry as he gets his name out there. But one other thing too, Fry is known in the 7th, which is a small district in Horry County. Out of all the congressional districts, that's one of the smallest because Horry County is so populous, right?
Right.
Nobody knows him in Greenville.
No, and nobody would know him up here either.
Exactly, brother. Exactly. So this is why it's so interesting, because he's going to be considered establishment, but he's got a very conservative voting record. He's got the Trump endorsement, but he's not known anywhere outside of the 7th. So what do you do? And besides, he's not a stalwart of South Carolina politics. He's relatively new.
He served what? 2? He's already been in 2 terms so far in the state.
Either 2 or he's been in 1, and this is his 2nd coming up, like Sherry Biggs, maybe 2.
He's a 2-term Republican.
Yeah. Okay, so this would be his 3rd coming up.
Yes, this would be his 3rd coming up.
Right. So you've got like I said, you've got new people coming into office that this is going to be a very interesting thing. And then don't forget, we have a general election not that far away.
Right. November. It's just up and around the corner.
So Annie Andrews is sitting back watching this.
I was going to ask you that. The thoughts now turns to the Democratic Party. Do you think that they're going to sit there now and try to take some sort of I guess you could say that they're chomping at the bit?
Who do you think they would want, man? Who do you think they want to go after?
They want to go after, I think, Mark Lynch.
Put them in order. Go after Mark Lynch, number 1, Ralph Norman, number 2, and then you probably want to go after Fry, number 3. Norman because of the age. Norman because he's the quintessential, white Republican that the stereotypical person they love to run against.
Right.
So that's if they have their druthers right now, it's going to be Mark Lynch, because that's what they want to run against. They want to attack him on several different fronts. Now, Annie Andrews is not. Oh boy, she's like Mondavi up there in New York. Yeah. She's like 1 or 2 steps away from him, but boy, she's right there at it. So if you don't know anything about Andrews, that's a fun research project, brother, but you don't want her anywhere near Columbia. That free health care for South Carolina, yeah, you don't want that. That's a pig in the poke. That'll bankrupt your state worse than that Somerset nuclear plant. You know what I mean?
Oh, how well we know all about that one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let me ask this. I want to turn our attention to the local aspect. With Lindsey passing, this has to really take a toll on us locally too, because Oconee, Pickens counties, if we needed something from the federal government, we always had someone that we could call. And now with Lindsey has passed away, we don't have that anymore. Matter of fact, Westminster just got some grant money from the senator, a couple of $1 million, I think it was. That's going to be a hardship for Oconee County. Okay, so there's 2 ways to look at this, Jeff, and that's a very apropos question. Number 1, if it is state funding, okay, you have 2 long-term people in your delegation. You've got Senator Alexander and you got Senator Whitmer, and then you got Adam Duncan, who's relatively new, but he will work hard to get these things done. So on the state level, I feel okay. Then you get to the federal side, and that is where it's going to get interesting. Okay. So 24 years in the Senate, you make some minimums, right? Right. Exactly.
Okay. And Lindsey was very good to Anderson, Pickens, Oconee. I mean, he was very good to the Triangle and the Tri-County area. That was extremely, boy, he loved South Carolina and he loved this area. The problem is you're going to have people that are in the Appropriations Committee and they're going to say, well, Pickens had their, they've had their share. Let's give this to, Yuma, Arizona or Gilbert, Arizona or something. The reason why I'm saying that is that's where your senators are going to be asking for money that used to go flowing into South Carolina on the federal side.
Right.
So it's some of these funds on the federal side are going to get stipend a little bit, but I'm sure that we can start talking to our state delegation and get some state funds in here too. So I hope that we can find ways to shift, and the people of Oconee have been very resilient, Jeff, and they're very smart, and they will find a way to succeed. So let's hope. But anybody who worked with, Senator Graham and had an issue, whether they be a VA issue or something like that, he was very accommodating, and he got the job done for him. So the man loved his constituents.
You're right. You're exactly right.
So yes, they'll just have to find a different way, and they better start thinking now. Try to go to the state, not the federal anymore.
Yep. Well, Barry, I appreciate you joining us. I wanted to have your perspective on because I feel like that we've got a great thing going here, and it's great to hear what's happening. Not only what you're doing here locally, you are the chairman of our Oconee County Republican Party, and it's just good to have these conversations. And again, this is something that we're not accustomed to. That I don't even know if we've ever had to do this.
Well, can I put a plug in to have our results?
Sure.
Show again. We'll do that on August 11th. You and I. How about that?
That will be fine, and we will. We can do it. I'll figure a way out so that we can do it a little bit better.
And one more thing, Jeff.
Sure.
If you know anyone who wants to run for the school board here in Oconee County, have them get in touch with you, because that is one thing we want our folks to get involved in. Is we need more people to help us in the decisions that impact our future. So if you're interested, that's a great way to go, and we'll see if we can help you out. But get in touch with Jeff. He'll get in touch with me, and we'll see what we can do for you.
All right. Well, Barry, we'll be back in touch, and we'll go ahead and set this down for August here, and look forward to being able to bring some news and analysis to this, because again, this is something we've never had to do. We elected one to go into the primary to run in November, and now we're having to go and elect another one. So wow, I hope this doesn't repeat itself ever again. But you and I enjoy talking about it. We have a good time. We do. We do.
Put our things, brother, and give us an opportunity to talk. Brother, you take care, and your listeners have a good evening. All right.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate it. All right, there. Barry Sanders joined us on our guest line here this evening from the Pot Stirrer studio as we were discussing a little bit about Lindsey Graham. Now into the good stuff here this evening. Boy, oh boy, howdy. Has it been one today, this afternoon? I don't know how many of you are following the crap going on at the Corinth Shiloh Volunteer Fire District Fire Department. But let me tell you, howdy, it is going back and forth here. So there again, to set this in motion, there was a referendum last year that was asked to the area of Corinth Shiloh, the lower part, to form its own fire district. Well, and the vote was taken and the vote was approved. So the voters of that area said yes, that they wanted a fire district. Well, the disagreement began from right after that. So you still have the entity that was the volunteer fire organization, the 501c3, and then you had the new tax district, which had its own commissioners that were appointed by the Oconee County Council. So the volunteer organization says it has spent months attempting to negotiate a consolidation agreement that would bring volunteers and paid firefighters together under one department. Well, the organization also says volunteers were denied access to the fire station Monday night for a scheduled meeting that deputies with the Oconee County Sheriff's Office had to respond before members left easily. Now, we're talking about the volunteers here. Well, today the fire district issued its own statement. The district says it is the governmental fire authority responsible for emergency services within the district, and the former volunteers had several months to apply individually to become members of that department. And according to the district, most applicants who completed the process were accepted. The district also states that Monday night's gathering at the fire station was unauthorized because the station is an active emergency response facility and not a public meeting space. It also says questions involving public assets, funding, and ownership should be resolved through the legal and administrative channels rather than social media. And it is apparently that this story is clearly far from over. Now, I'm going to give you my perspective, and it may not be the greatest perspective that I know some of those. I'm friends with some of those folks that are part of the volunteer fire department or the 501c3. But you all were the ones that wanted a fire district because you wasn't getting enough funding. The funding was bad. You felt this would be a great opportunity. So the volunteers, the 501c3, they were the ones that went out into the community to solicit for votes for the referendum. It was Kevin Christenberry, all of those. So when the referendum was approved and everything was set in place, my opinion, the volunteer fire department should have ceased to exist. There should not be a 501c3 because, number one, unfortunately, you have a referendum. The referendum passed. That's a fire district now. It's under a whole different organization. So what should have happened is everybody should have got together, had a meeting, and say this, and worked on the things that needed to be transferred, and everything should have been transferred to the fire district. Here's the bottom line of everything. The taxpayer is the one that's caught in the crosshairs between the fighting between not only the district, but the former 501c3. They're the ones paying the cost of the bickering. This should be settled. It should have been fixed months ago, and it should be over with. But apparently, it's not. It's a tit for tat. It's going on social media. It's continuing back and forth. And again, yesterday, the 501c3, there should not be two organizations. That's the problem. Because once the referendum and everything was put into place, the county council appointed and I know that's another thing about the issues going on right now is about the council wanting to change it to the nomination process. I don't know enough to get involved in that. You're saying that you're taking away the rights of the taxpayer. I don't know that to be the case. I think there's a whole lot of other things going on out there. So, we will have to wait and see what's happening there. So anyway, but the tit for tat is going on social media back and forth, and it's just continuing here. So we will keep you updated and let you know how this, and I'm sure this is going to continue. There'll be more to talk about this, but yeah, the fire department, the fire district made a post today on social media, and yesterday, of course, the fire district or the 501c3 volunteers, they were talking about this, and they were going back and forth. My biggest issue is where's this money at and who is holding this money? There was a statement made that the 501c3 is still holding some money. Is that county money? Is that money that was raised through the volunteers? So see, there's a whole ton of information there that we still don't know about. But again, this is making news. A lot of folks are talking about this. Well, we need to get the facts right about something else. Okay. And this was brought to my attention. I've got some comments here. Did I get to see the update from Corinth Shiloh Fire Department? I did. I've read both of it this afternoon. So yeah, I did get to see it. So what in the world? We got to talk about our good friends from the Journal. Again, we love our good friends from the Seneca Journal. They're just wonderful people. But when it comes to editorials and getting the facts correct, well, a little bit, and I'll be honest with you, they like to stir the pot even more than I do sometimes. But there was an editorial about the city of Walhalla, and it made it look pretty bad. But editorial pages are supposed to be based on facts, right? For example, if you'll remember, it was their little editorial talking about that the city of Seneca, had they not have went to, they needed to go to the flat $15 because everything else was going up 40%. Well, that turned out to be not true. Period. So they're little editorials, and sometimes they like to embellish a little bit of things. But I've read this editorial about the city of Walhalla, and it got me thinking. So certainly opinions are certainly welcome, but opinions should still be built upon accurate information. So last week, the Journal published another editorial criticizing the city of Walhalla and its budget. Well, a detailed response quickly followed, pointing out that the writer says were numerous factual inaccuracies. Among those points were claims that the city does, in fact, operate under a balanced budget. That is required by every municipality, county government. That is required by state law. That planning services already existed. The council members were aware of proposed staff changing weeks before the vote, and that the city has continued investing in infrastructure, emergency service, recreation, and public facilities. So whether you agree with the editorial or not, it's important that the discussions about public policy begins with accurate facts. And that's one of the things that we try to do here on the Pod Stirrer, is give you those accurate facts. When we find something that we think is wrong, or when we see something that we disagree with, that's why we try to point it out and give you the accurate information. So I just wanted to pass that along. There's a whole lot of other things here, but just remember, when you read certain things, just remember that it's going to be skewed a certain way. It's not skewed here. I'm going to give you the facts as I know them. So there you go. That's a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about here this evening. The big one, of course, with Senator Lindsey Graham. I had the opportunity for 10 years. I worked with Lindsey. I was part of the broadcast team that was his engineer. He used to use the facilities at Clemson University for his live television hits with Face the Nation, Meet the Press. And for almost 10 years, I was his engineer. So I got to know Lindsey, the senator. And again, you know, very funny, sharp-witted, didn't agree with some of the policies that he put forth. But you know what? He was our elected representative, and he did deserve the respect for that. And again, this kind of changed up everything here. And I think a lot of folks were shocked. And I know that Sunday morning when I got the word, I was completely shocked. I just thought it was absolutely wow. Just incredible that, you know, Lindsey Graham, 71, or an aorta dissection, which is something different from an aneurysm. And me having heart issues, I had a heart attack in 2012. So I'm aware of what's going on, and, you know, the heart issues, something that I face, heart of the arteries, heart, you know, I had a heart attack, 100% blockage in the Widowmaker. So I can relate to that. One other item tonight on the program I want to talk about, and this one has been needed to be talked about for quite some time. It's time for a forensic audit of the city of Seneca. Well, matter of fact, to be honest with you, everybody, it's past time. The citizens of Seneca, it is time to demand a forensic audit of our city government. Let me explain something. I'm 50 years old, and I've lived in Seneca my entire life. I've seen this city at its best. I've seen it struggle. I've seen a whole lot of in between. But what we're witnessing today is something very different. It's ugly, and more people across this community are beginning to ask a lot of questions. What in the world is going on? Well, during a recent budget discussion, Council Dana Moore summed up the part of the problem when he pointed to the role of the local newspaper in shaping the public narrative. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Many citizens no longer have confidence that they're getting the full picture. I have heard that from numerous city residents. Matter of fact, I've heard that from numerous county residents coming to the aid and saying, thank you, Jeff, for giving us the information. And this is why I believe it is time to have a forensic audit for the city of Seneca. It's long overdue. For example, Matt Durham, county council, along with Stuart Jones, the new county administrator, the first thing they came in, they made the decision to have a forensic audit. And when they had the forensic audit has shown some irregularities. Now, all of it's not been released yet from the county side. But I will tell you, when the county does release it, I think it's going to show a very large pattern of some major issues. I want you to understand what I'm about to say next is that county administrator that was the county administrator at the time is currently the administrator of the current city. We've heard numerous times the money's been spent. Where is it going? And I went back and I took a look at every budget for the last 8 years, city budget. And I'm going to tell you something. Something ain't right. Something is bad wrong. Now, I'm no accountant. I just graduated Seneca High School in 1994. So I'm a fossil. But I can assure you something don't look right. And I think it is time, with what has been going on at the county level back years ago, it is time to have an independent financial review. Here's one thing. If there's nothing wrong, it would settle everything. It can uncover information the public never knew existed. And a forensic audit isn't about politics or settling scores. It is about transparency, accountability, and restoring the public trust. Well, now, Jeff, all you're trying to do is just stir up problems. No, I'm not stirring up problems. But when I have a county administrator in an interview state that they found some questionable things back from 2014, that makes me question. And some of the same things that were happening at the county level seem to be occurring at the city level. Prior to this administrator taking over, we had no issues. And I'm referring to the Greg Dietrich era. For 20-something years, we had money. We had reserves. We could do these things. We didn't have to dip into the coffers and raid everything. I'm just telling you, the more I see, the more I hear, taxpayers deserve to know where their money has gone, how it's been spent, and whether every dollar has been managed responsibly over the past 8 years. Again, a lot of folks keep talking about it, and I keep going back to this transfer of money from light and water to the general fund. And last year it was a little over $5.5 million. Why are we having to transfer money over to light and water, from light and water to the general fund, when that budget is supposed to be balanced? And what is that $5 million fund that you're taking from light and water? It seems like to me that we've got the money or had the money to cover these increases, but you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. I've said this time and time again. Something doesn't add up. On top of that, in last week's budget meeting that they had, the redo of the Seneca Light and Water, I heard a wonderful presentation. Everybody talked about, okay, we're going to go up 10%, 10%, and 4.5%. But again, I give Scott Mulder a little credit here. He's the one that said, well, you were supposed to have gone up for the last 5 years. So if we were supposed to have gone up for the last 5 years, why in the hell did we take out $5.5 million and put it in the general fund? Something don't add up. It stinks. But then on top of that, you had Joel Ward, you had Dana Moore, Lakeisha Benson, you even had Scott Durham and E. Riley. You also had Denise Rosman and W.C. Honeycutt voted for the fair thing. Why in the world did Ronnie vote against it and Dan voted against it? Dan says it's because he needed to know more. Dan, you were the mayor. You don't have to know more.
You were the mayor for all these years, and you're sitting there. Well, I'm going to have to know more. What is there more to know about? But you voted no, and Ronnie O'Kelly voted no. Come on, somebody help me. Make it make sense here. I can't make this stuff up. Please help me make sense of it. Before 2018, the city of Seneca was widely viewed as being on solid financial footing. So the obvious question, what changed? That's not an accusation. It's a question that deserves an honest answer backed by facts, not speculation, politics, or headlines. A forensic audit would either confirm everything has been handled properly or identified problems that need to be corrected. Either outcome benefits the citizen because the truth should never be something we fear. And at the end of the day, this isn't a Republican. This isn't a Democrat. Elected officials or city staff. It's about the people who pays the taxes, the utility bills, and who call Seneca home. The citizens deserve answers, and the citizens deserve transparency. And after everything that's happened, I believe it's time for a forensic audit, and it is time for it now. I don't know how many of you agree with me. Some of you out there are probably going, well, we don't need a forensic audit. I'm telling you, going back and taking a look at all these budgets, looking at the numbers, something is amiss. I've been told a couple of other things that I've got a couple of facts to. Something about $200-something thousand that we wasted for no reason. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things in this budget that makes no sense. But again, it's going to take you, the citizens, if you've had enough, and I think some of you have, because I'm hearing it everywhere I go. I keep hearing everybody, thank you, Jeff, for exposing, and thank you, Jeff, for keeping everything, showing everything that's going on. I keep hearing everything, so it's really good. And that's one of the reasons why we're here doing this show. But again, we've got a whole new thing, the way that we're doing stuff here in the state, because with the passing of Lindsey Graham, it's, I tell you what, November is going to be very interesting. I think the next several months until, we get things situated, until we go into the general election, 24 years of service on the federal side as a state senator. With the passing of Lindsey Graham, I think it's going to get a little interesting around here, and there's going to be a little bit of things that's going to get a little right until we can find out where we're heading and what we're doing. And I think it is a big loss to Oconee County because, again, there's been a lot of times that we've, some of us have picked up the phone for help from our senator, and Lindsey was always right there. And again, I worked with Lindsey for, 10 years as his engineer at Clemson when he used to do his television hits. Interesting guy. I hate it for the family. I know there's a lot of people that are not happy about his sister filling out the rest of his term. But you know what? The story, I think somewhere is going to have a book about it. Their mom and dad passed away. She was 13 years old, and Lindsey adopted her and raised her. And I think that's a story in itself that at some point probably deserves an autobiography in that story. Well, folks, that's going to do it here for this week. Coming up on the 28th, that is Tuesday the 28th, I want to remind you that we will have an hour show with the sheriff of Oconee County. Mike Crenshaw is going to be here. Join us. We're going to talk about school resource officers. We're going to talk about this upcoming school year, talk about how things are going in the sheriff's department, and we'll talk a little bit about the 911. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Coming up here, the Seneca Dispatch. And again, they're still working on trying to get all of that squared away. No matter what people say, it is going to cost us. We just don't know how much it's going to cost us. Mike, let's see. Michael Crouch gets in there. Mark Lynch will not win. I don't know. I said this earlier. I don't see how. I don't know if there's a path forward. I mean, look, we saw what happened to him during the run up for the primary for the Senate, for the U.S. Senate. So I don't know. There's a lot of names being popped out. And again, we're all going to know this week, next week, about what happens. Michael says, ask him about the deflection program by OARS, the Oconee Addiction Recovery Solutions. Oh, I may need to do that. But we'll have to wait and see. Next week is a new week. And again, filing will open up, and then we'll get things cranked up because we'll have an election just up and around the corner. The primary that no one thought we didn't think was going to need, but it's coming because of a death with Lindsey Graham. All right, folks, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you have a great Tuesday evening. And again, we will keep you up to date. We'll have another show next week for you. And I, again, appreciate it. You can share with all your friends, and we will see you again next week. The website, if you want to watch the show on YouTube, it's available. The website is JazzyJeffPodster.com. That's JazzyJeffPodster.com. Otherwise, have a great week, and I appreciate you watching us here on the Podster with Jazzy Jeff.
From the back roads and courthouse steps of small town South Carolina to the late night studio where the mics never sleep, this is where decisions, rumors, and real stories collide. You're tuned in to the Podster Podcast with Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, local issues, no fluff.